The Lancaster claim to the throne is probably the true one, that in a sense you have these three boys, the House of Lancaster, the House of York, and then the illegitimate line, which was made legitimate by marriage after the birth of the boys, and that's the House of the Beauforts. Margaret is descended through the Beauforts, and then she marries a Tudor. So she's very much of the House of Lancaster, and that was the senior boy in the household, so that's the legitimate line. The younger son is the House of York, and so when the House of Lancaster line fails, York steps in. But Margaret, in a sense, is there. Once she has a boy, that's a boy for Lancaster. So she feels that the royal line of kingship should revert to her son. The relationship between Margaret and Jasper Tudor, we don't know very well because we don't have any personal letters or diaries. Any time before really the 18th century, you don't get a lot of personal material. People don't write about their feelings. They write about their duty. They write about jobs they're going to do. It's a much more pragmatic approach to the world than you get from the Romantics. But he was absolutely the defender of her son. He was her only friend when she had no friends at all. He was the one constant male presence in her life. She had 3 husbands, but Jasper Tudor was always her brother-in-law and was always there for her. And, he was a handsome man of her age. There's no doubt in my mind that they must have been very devoted to each other and very loyal to each other, and that they loved each other. I think what was interesting in this novel was to write a story which is actually about a very passionate and very deep love, but it's that of a mother for her son. Margaret Beaufort's absolute life's work was to get her son firstly back to England. He went into exile when he was about 14. Under her control, he left her really when he was 4. He was taken away by his guardians and ultimately onto the throne because she always believed that actually she'd had a revelation that God told her that Henry should be King of England. And her life's work and her life's passion was to see her son on the throne of England. And in a way, that's the love story of the novel. It's between a mother and a very promising, very gifted son. Margaret was married 3 times and each marriage was arranged. We're sure of that, they weren't love marriages. Her first husband, Edmund, she hardly lived with at all. She conceived almost straight away, and he was busy fighting the Yorkists in Wales and was actually captured in battle and held in captivity where he contracted the plague and died. So he wasn't even there for the birth of her first child and her only child, Henry Tudor. In a sense, Edmund's job is done. She's in the royal line. Henry is a Tudor, and that gives him a claim to the throne. It gives him a kinship to the throne. And thereafter, she's married almost straight away to her second husband, Sir Henry Stafford, who was very much older than her. He was in his 40s. And it was a marriage which lasted for some many years. And I suspect that it was one of some affection and comradeship. He certainly kept her safe through these years, and he was certainly of the House of Lancaster. She must have been bitterly disappointed when he finally decided that he would support York, and he went out and fought for York and came home wounded and then died some years later. Her third marriage is probably the most interesting one, that I think she may well have made it for herself. She was a wealthy woman by now as a widow, and she'd had 2 husbands. She knew that she was infertile, so she couldn't offer a husband the chance of an heir. But in the case of Thomas Lord Stanley, he already had heirs from a previous marriage, so that wasn't a problem for them. I really believe she chose him because he was very successful and senior in the House of York, and she thought that marriage to him would increase her chances of bringing her son Henry Tudor home to forgiveness, to reconciliation, and to claim his earldom. In fact, what happened was that because Edward died, just as she was negotiating this, Edward died, Richard III seized the throne, and I think she saw, as the real master tactician that she was, that there would be a very good chance of someone, like her son Henry, to seize the throne in turn from Richard. And she embarked on this enormous conspiracy, which took in Elizabeth Woodville, took in the Duke of Buckingham, and took in half of the south of England, and ultimately ended up with her son Henry winning at the Battle of Bosworth.